G'day, this is Chris Savage from RL Ministries in Australia, welcoming you to this session of Demonology, the Doctrine of Demons. I pray that it will be a blessing to you and help you in your Christian growth. Thank you for coming along. So we're into the first part or the first session of Demonology, and Demonology is the Doctrine of Demons, and we're going to cover a bit of stuff tonight. Go back into Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 to 12. Where Paul, writing to the church at Ephesus, he says, "Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places." So Paul is just gearing us up to let us know where our battle is. Now, the English word demon comes from the Greek word daimonia, and this Greek word is used actually 60 times in the New Testament, 19 times as a singular and 41 times in the plural. So demonology then is the doctrine of demons or the doctrine of fallen angels. We've covered the elect angels prior, we've covered Satanology. Now, this is the third part in this study about angelology, if you like. Now, there are 5 common misconceptions concerning demons that should be mentioned by way of introduction here. Now, the reasons why these beliefs are wrong will become evident as we go through the study and as we examine what the Bible says about demons. But for now, we just need to realize here, or just to note, that these 5 wrong views. Now, the first wrong view is that demons simply do not exist. Now, that's the view of many naturalists and skeptics of the Bible, as well as most unbelievers. They just think it's airy-fairy stuff. Second wrong view is that demons are not personalities, but are evil emanations without personalities. In other words, they are simply influences or powers and not personal beings. So that's the second wrong view. The third wrong view is that demons are responsible for every sin. Now, this is a wrong view held sometimes even by believers who believe that every sin that they commit is due to a demon or to Satan. And that's why we quite often will hear the expression, "The devil made me do it." Now, the reality is that Satan himself is not particularly interested in most of us. He has bigger fish to go after. Now, sometimes, of course, the devil may have caused one to do it. But in the majority of cases, it is the individual who is responsible and not the devil, not Satan. Our fourth wrong view teaches that demons are responsible for every form of physical infirmity. And some physical infirmities are caused by demons, but not all. And we see Jesus dealing with the woman bound over who was bound by Satan for 18 years. So some physical infirmities are actually caused by demons, but not all of them. A fifth wrong view is that demons are responsible for every form of mental infirmity. Again, they are responsible for some, but not all mental infirmity is caused by demons. So these are the 5 wrong views that people hold to concerning demons. The truth will be developed as we go through this study. Now, does the Bible, this is a big question, does the Bible actually teach that demons exist? Well, the answer is yes, it does. It does teach that demons exist, and we can see this in three ways. First of all, we find that the existence of demons is mentioned by every New Testament writer except the author of Hebrews, who did mention Satan, the head of demons. Matthew mentioned demons in his gospel in chapter 4, 24, 8, 16, and 28 and 31 and 33. chapter 9, 32 to 34, chapter 11, verse 18, 12, verse 22 and 24. So he mentions it several times in his gospel. Mark is the same. He mentioned demons in Mark 1, 32 and 34, chapter 3, verse 15 and 22, chapter 6, 13, chapter 7, 20, 26, chapter 7, 30, chapter 9, verse 39, and chapter 16, verse 9. So he has a good span there as well. Now, Luke wrote 2 books of the New Testament, which is the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts. And he mentioned demons in both of his books. In the Gospel of Luke, demons are found in Luke chapter 4, verse 33, chapter 7, verse 33, chapter 8, verse 2, chapter 8, verse 27, 35, 36, 38, chapter 9, verse 1 and 49, chapter 11, verse 15. And then in his second book, the book of Acts, Luke also mentioned demons in Acts 5:16, Acts 8:7, Acts 16:16 to 18, Acts 19:12 to 16. And then the last gospel writer we have is John, and John actually wrote a total of 5 New Testament books, and he mentions demons in 3 of these books. The Gospel of John, we have John 8, verse 48 to 49 and 52. We have John 10, verse 20 to 21. And then we have the first epistle of John, chapter 4, verses 1 to 3. And we also have the book of Revelation, chapter 8, verse 10 to 11, chapter 9, 1 to 21, chapter 12, 7 and 9, chapter 16, 13 to 14, and chapter 18, verse 2. So we have in the gospel writers here, they mention it in all of their books that they wrote. Now, Paul, who wrote the majority of the books in the New Testament, he mentions demons in 3 of them. We have it in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20 to 21, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, and 1 Timothy 4, verse 1. Now, James mentioned demons in James 2:19 and 3:15. Peter mentioned demons in 2 Peter 2, verse 4. And then we had Jude, who mentioned demons in Jude 6. So every writer of the New Testament mentioned demons somewhere in his writings, with only one exception, and that's the unknown author of the book of Hebrews. This writer did, however, mention Satan. And if he believed in Satan, he obviously believed in the existence of demons. A second way to show that the Bible teaches the existence of demons is by the fact that Jesus recognized the existence of demons in 2 ways. First of all, he actually taught that they really do exist. We find this in Matthew chapter 7, verse 22, and chapter 10, verse 8. Also chapter 12, verse 27 to 28, chapter 25, verse 41. And then Mark also recorded the teachings of Jesus in chapter 7, verse 29, and chapter 16, verse 17. Luke in chapter 10, verse 20, and chapter 11, verses 18 to 20, also chapter 13, verse 32. So Jesus taught that demons exist. Now, secondly, he clearly recognized the existence of demons because he cast out demons. So the very fact that Jesus cast out demons demonstrated by his actions, what he did, that he taught the existence of demons. And we see him doing this in Matthew 12, 22 to 29, and Mark 1, verse 39, and chapter 5, verse 1 to 10. The other gospel writer, Luke, in Luke 4, verse 35 and 41, along with Luke 8, 29 to 33, Luke 9, 42, Luke 11, 14. So clearly, Jesus recognized the existence of demons, both by his teachings and by his actions, what he did, casting them out. We also see a third area where we have recognition of by the disciples. These disciples, both within the apostolic group and those who were outside the apostolic group, recognize their existence. The apostolic group recognized the existence of demons because we find in Matthew chapter 10, verse 1, where Jesus gave them, the apostolic group, authority over the unclean spirits to cast them out. Now, outside of the apostolic group, the 70 disciples that Jesus sent out 2 by 2 recognized the existence of demons, because we see in Luke 10, verse 17, the 72 returned with joy, saying, "Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name." So they all experienced it. They were involved in casting them out. They're involved in taking authority over them. And so just by their practical lives, that they believe in these things and they recognize these things. So there's no question then that the Bible clearly teaches the existence of demons. And the Bible is our final authority in all matters of faith anyway. So now we have in the second section, now we have the names of demons. Now demons are given a number of names in Scripture, and we're going to look at this in 2 categories. First of all, we're going to look at the Old Testament names, and secondly, some New Testament names. Now, in the Old Testament names, we have 12 names used concerning demons. First of all, they're called angels of evil, and that comes out of Psalm 78, verse 49, because that's actually what they are. The word angel means messenger, and these are messengers of Satan, who is called the evil one. So these are angels of evil. That's what they do. Secondly, they are called the sons of God. Now, wherever that expression is used in the Old Testament, it always refers to angels. Now, sometimes it refers to good angels, but it can also refer to evil angels or demons. And we can find that in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 and 4. Or was it 2 and 4? In Genesis chapter 6, somewhere in verses 1 to 2 and 4. Third Old Testament name is Shadim. Now, Shadim is a Hebrew word that means to rule or to be Lord. And it is used of demons in Deuteronomy 32, verse 17, where it says that they sacrificed unto demons, which were no God. And then the psalmist picks it up in Psalm 106, verse 37, where they sacrificed their sons and their daughters to the demons. So this is the word Shadim, which means to rule or to lord. So this name emphasizes a demon's desire to be lord over or to rule over a person. And this is either from the inside by indwelling him or by controlling him and his activities from the outside. So that is Shadim. So first three we see angels of evil, sons of God, and Shadim. Now the fourth Old Testament name is Serim, which refers to demons who have the form of a goat. That's an animal, goat. Now, as we're going to see later in the study, we're going to find that demons have animal-like features. Some have the form of a goat, and these are known as Serim, S-E-I-R-I-M. And it is no accident that satanic groups often use the symbol of the head of a goat. Now, this name is used of demons in the Hebrew text in Leviticus chapter 17, verse 7. It says, "They shall no more sacrifice their sacrifices unto the he-goats." And then we have 2 Chronicles 11:15 and Isaiah chapter 13, verse 21, and Isaiah 34:14, which they mention these Serim. The fifth Old Testament name is Lilith. It's a Hebrew word that refers to a night demon or demons of the night. It's used of demons in the Hebrew text of Isaiah 34, verse 14, where it says, yea, the night monster shall settle there and shall find her a place of rest. And a sixth Old Testament name is an easy one. It's an evil spirit. And this we find in 1 Samuel 16, 14 to 16, and then 16, verse 23, where it speaks about, and the evil spirit departed from him. We also find it in 1 Samuel 18, 10 and 19, 9. Now, this is emphasizing what a demon is by nature. A demon is a spirit being, but it is an evil spirit being. It is one that has fallen. A seventh Old Testament name is lying spirit, and we find this in 1 Kings 22, verses 21 to 22. And he said, I will go forth and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. So this here is a term that characterizes what demons are. They are liars. They're characterized by falsehood. So is their father, well, their commander-in-chief is the father of lies, Satan. Now, the eighth Old Testament name is a familiar spirit, and we find this in Deuteronomy 18, verse 11, where it speaks about a consulter with a familiar spirit, or a wizard, or a necromancer. It's just talking about, people visiting them. We also see this in Isaiah 8, verse 19, and Isaiah 19, verse 3. So this is used of demons who are involved with witches, spiritualists, the occult, things like that. So these are demons that reveal themselves through these mediums or through these wizards and witches, which are these are familiar spirits. A ninth Old Testament name is Gad, G-A-D, which means fortune. Now, this is a demon of fortune, which is mentioned in Isaiah 65, verse 11. This is about that Israel were preparing a table for fortune, and that fill up mingled wine onto destiny. So we see there fortune and destiny. They are two demons. One is, so we have the one fortune, which is Gad, and then the 10th one is Meni, M-E-N-I, which means fate or destiny. And this is the one we see here in Isaiah 65, 11. So two pagan gods. And the 11th Old Testament name is Elilim. It's we find this in Psalm 96, verse 5. It says, all the gods of the peoples are idols. This is, and this word Elilim is often translated into English as idols, but it actually refers to demons of idolatry, because, behind idolatry is the work of demons, and those demons are especially involved in the work of idolatry, and these are the ones who are called the Elilim. And then the 12th name is Keteb, or sometimes you see Ketev. We find this in Psalm 91, verse 6. Nor for the destruction that waiteth at noonday. So you don't see Keteb there, but the Hebrew designation that means destruction. This is what it is here, Keteb. It refers to those demons involved in the work of destruction. Now we have some New Testament names for them, and there are 4 categories of names we find in the New Testament. We have the names which contain the same Greek root, and this is the root term for demon. The meaning of the root for demon is intelligence. So what that means is that demons are intelligent beings, and the root word for demon is used 79 times in the New Testament. Now, from this basic root for demon, a total of 6 different forms develop. The first form is daemon, which we find in Matthew chapter 8, verse 31, which means evil power. So it's an evil power. And then the second is daimonion. This is the most basic word for demon, and it is used a total of 63 times. One example we find it is in Luke 4, verse 33, where it speaks about the spirit of an unclean demon, and that's the word daimonion. A third form of the root is daemoniotes. Pardon my Greek. This is my English version of Greek, which means demoniacal, and it's used only once. We find it in James chapter 3, verse 15. So that's 3 of them so far. Oh, the Greek words gets more and more difficult here. A fourth form is daemonizomai, meaning to be controlled by a demon from within, and it's used 13 times. And one of those cases we find in Matthew chapter 4, verse 24, where it speaks about those oppressed by demons, and the word here is daemonizomai. The fifth word, or the fifth form, is daizidemonestros, roughly speaking, which means to be very reverent to demons. Now, what this emphasizes here, it emphasizes the occult world, and it's used in Acts chapter 17, verse 22. It's used only once in the New Testament. Sixth form we have here is Deus Demonis, or Deus Demonii, which means demon worship. It also is strongly connected with the occult world and is used only once. We find it in Acts 25, verse 19, where it speaks about certain questions against him of their own religion, and the word their religion is this word daizidaimoni, daizidaimoni, and that's the word for religion here, which means it's demon worship. So again, connected with the occult. They also have names containing spirit. And this is the second category of demons, or names of demons, are those that contain the word spirit. And the word spirit is used a total of 46 times in conjunction with demons. And there are 5 different names. Well, first up, we have evil spirit. And this is the pneuma poneron. And we find this in Luke 7, verse 21, Acts 19, 12 to 16. By nature, demons are evil spirits. Secondly, we have the unclean spirit, and this one is the pneuma akathartos. It's unclean spirit. This is basic internal corruption, and that they are ceremonially defiling. So Matthew chapter 10, verse 1, where we see Jesus gave them authority over unclean spirits. So this is the pneuma akathartos. Also, we find it in Matthew 12:43 and Mark 1:27, Mark 3:11, 5:13. Also Acts 5:16 and 8:7, and we find it in Revelation chapter 16, verse 13. Then we have the wicked spirit, and this is a pneumata poneratera. And this we find in Luke 11, verse 26, where it speaks about he takes to him 7 other spirits more evil than himself. So this is that wicked spirits. Fourthly, we have the seducing spirits, which is the pneuma planos. In 1 Timothy 4:1, it says, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. And the fifth name combines spirit and demon together as spirits of demons, which we find in Revelation 16:14, which is that pneumata daimonion. So that's the spirits out the way. Now we have a third category of names of demons is angels. Well, remember, angel means messenger. And demons are referred to, and so angels refers to both good and bad, good and bad angels. We have here they're referred to as angels. Why? Because they are simply messengers of who? Well, they're messengers of Satan. And we find this in Matthew 25, verse 41, and also Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 to 9. And then we have another term called destruction. Now, this name, destruction, this is the name of the demon of the abyss. And we find this one in Revelation chapter 9, verse 11. And it says that in Hebrew, his name is Abaddon, and his Greek name is Apollyon. Now, whether it's the Hebrew or the Greek word that is used, they both mean the same thing, and they both mean destruction. And this is the one we find in the chapter 9, verse 11 of Revelation. This is the guy of the abyss. Now, are demons merely emanations or influences or powers? Or, as we've seen before, does the Bible teach that demons have personalities? You know, if they don't have personalities, well, they're not persons. Now, if it can be proven that something has all three of these attributes of personality, then that something is going to be a personality. So we're going to look at the three things here. The three attributes of personality are intellect, emotion, and will. Now, in regard to intellect, do demons have intellect? Well, the answer is yes, they do. And we see this in 6 ways. First of all, demons know who Jesus is, because we see this in Mark chapter 1, verse 24. And secondly, demons know their own future doom. And we see this in Matthew 28 to 29. And third, demons knew both Jesus and Paul. And we find this in Acts chapter 16, verses 16 to 17, and Acts chapter 19, verse 15. So they obviously do have intellect. If they know who Jesus is, know who Paul is, know their own future, well, they have an intellect. Fourthly, demons also know that God is one. And we find this in James chapter 2, verse 19. And then fifth, demons have a counterfeit system of doctrine. And Paul, writing to Timothy, tells him this in 1 Timothy 4, verses 1 to 3. They have a doctrine of demons, so they have a counterfeit system of doctrine, which means that they have intellect. And six, demons have the ability to communicate by speech. And we find this in Luke chapter 4, verse 34 to 35 and 41, and also Luke 8, 28 to 31. So very clearly from the scriptures, we find that demons do have intellect, which is the first attribute of personality. The second attribute is emotion. Now, do demons have emotions? Well, they do have emotions, and we can see this in 2 ways. First of all, they have the emotion of fierceness and anger, because we find this in Matthew chapter 8, verse 28. And secondly, they have the emotion of fear. We find it in Matthew 8, verse 29, along with James chapter 2, verse 19. The demons tremble at the name of the Lord. So demons have the second attribute, which is emotion. And to tremble in fear is an emotion. Now, do demons have will? Again, the answer is yes, they do. And again, we can see this in 3 ways. First of all, they have the will to make requests. We find this in Matthew 8, verse 31 and Luke chapter 8, verse 32. They asked Jesus to not send them to the abyss, but send them to the pigs. Secondly, they have the will to obey commands and orders, which we see in Mark 1, verse 27 and Luke chapter 4, verses 35 to 36. And thirdly, they have the will to leave a person, have a look around for a new place to live, or to return to the place where they formerly lived. So this demonstrates a will. And we find this in Matthew chapter 12, verses 43 to 45, where Jesus told a story of the demon who left the man and couldn't find somewhere to live. So he took 7 of his mates and went back there to live in that house. And the last state was worse than the first state. So all of these are evidences of the exercise of will. So demons do have all 3 attributes of personality, intellect, which is intellect, emotion, and will. And this shows, if they have these 3, it shows then that they have a personality, or they are a personality. Also, there's another way that it can be proven that demons have personality. Now, whenever the New Testament speaks of demons, it uses the personal pronoun. It never refers to a demon as an it, which would be natural if demons were simply just emanations. Instead, the text uses the pronouns we, us, they, your, I, and me in dealing with demons. And we can find this in Mark chapter 5, verses 6 to 13, and Luke 8, 28 to 30. In Mark chapter 5, verse 6 to 7, the demon cries out. He says, "What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God?" Then he goes on to say, "I adjure thee by God, torment me not." That's the demon speaking. And then when Jesus asks him his name, he saith unto him, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And in verse 10, and he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. So we see there, the pronouns, I, we, them, us. So, and they besought, verse 12, they besought him, saying, "Send us into the swine that we may enter into them." So these personal pronouns we see here, in addition to the attributes of intellect, emotion, and will, clearly show that demons have real personalities. Now, what is the origin of demons? We're going to have to separate this into 2 categories here. We're going to have to look at free demons and then confined demons. Now, ultimately, all demons, both free and confined, have the same origin. They are the angels who fell with Satan at the time of his fall. All demons were originally free demons, but some of these have since been confined. And we're going to have to be able to draw that distinction here. Now, the origin of the free demons. And we need to just remember here that demons and fallen angels are the same. To understand the origin of free demons, it's necessary to recognize that demons and fallen angels are one and the same, rather than 2 separate categories of beings. That they are the same, we can see again in 5 ways here. We see first, the first evidence here is that both demons and fallen angels are said to have a similar relationship to Satan. And this relationship is brought in 4 ways. First of all, Satan, who is an angel, is called the Prince of Demons. And we find that in Matthew 12, verse 24. So this indicates that those who follow him are also angels. He's the Prince of Demons. He's an angel, so those who follow him are also angels. Secondly, Satan has a well-organized order or rank of angels, and we find it in that passage we read to start with, Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 to 12. And it's very reasonable then to suppose that these fallen ranks of angels are demons. Third, they are referred to as the devil's angels. We find that in Matthew 25, verse 41, and are in all likelihood demons. These are the devil's angels. They're also called, in the fourth way, they're also called Satan's angels, and we find that in Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 to 9. And this also points to them as being the same as demons. So these four passages, Matthew 12, 24, Ephesians 6, 11 to 12, Matthew 25, 41, and Revelation 12, 7 to 9, show that fallen angels and demons have a similar relationship to Satan, implying that they're one and the same. Now, the second evidence that fallen angels and demons are one and the same is that they have the same essence of being. What that means is both of them are spirit beings. Fallen angels, demons, they're both spirit beings. The third evidence is that demons and fallen angels conduct similar activities in that both of them seek to enter men and both of them war against men and God. Fallen angels do this. We find it in Revelation chapter 9, verses 1, 2, and verse 11, and verses 13 to 15. And demons do the same thing. We find Revelation chapter 9, verses 3 to 10, and 16 to 21. So this tells us that fallen angels and demons are the same. In Revelation 9, verse 15, it has the verse 13 to 15. We have the sixth angel who blew the trumpet, and then we had in verse 15 we had the four angels who had been prepared for the hour, the day, the month, and the year, were released to kill a third of mankind. So these guys here, these demons, these fallen angels, seek to war against man and against God. They have the same abode or the same dwelling place. Fallen angels and demons are one and the same in that they both share the same abode, the same dwelling place, and that's the air, the atmospheric heavens. And that's where they dwell currently, in the atmospheric heavens. And we find that in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2, and Ephesians 6, verse 12, where it speaks about the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. And then we see fallen angels in Revelation chapter 7, verse 7 to 12, where it says that Satan, he was thrown down to the earth and his angels were thrown down with him. So they're both of them are dwelling in the same place, sharing the same abode, same dwelling place. We also see that a fifth evidence here is that demons and fallen angels are one and the same. We see that in the biblical text, because one finds either fallen angels or demons, but you never find both of them. No single verse mentions fallen angels and demons at the same time, with every applicable passage speaking of either one or the other. So this also shows that they're one and the same creatures. Now, in order to understand the origin of three demons, it should be remembered that fallen angels and demons are one and the same. And once we understand this, then the origin of three demons can also be understood. Now, three demons are demons who are fallen angels, and they originated at the time of the fall of Satan, in that demons are the angels who fell with Satan. And in Revelation 12, verse 4, it speaks about, and his tail, that's the great red dragon, his tail draweth the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast into the earth. So stars here are angels, and these are his this is Satan's cronies here, Satan's demons. Now, the results of the fall of Satan on the angels, well, we find this in Ezekiel chapter 28, verses 11 to 19. This describes the fall of Satan, who fell, according to verse 16, by the abundance of his traffic. Now, what does this mean? Well, the Hebrew terminology means that it implies here that Satan went from one angel to another, defaming God in order to capture the angel's allegiance to himself. Yeah, some of these angels were deceived by the satanic lie that he could accomplish those 5 I wills. These are the I will statements, and these are found in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 to 14. And one of those I wills would be, I will be like God. Now, some angels were convinced by Satan's claim, but the majority were not. And those who were convinced are the ones who fell with him. And we know that from Revelation that it was 1/3 of the angelic host that fell for his lie, were deceived by him. They are now the demons who are free and doing the bidding of Satan. Now, there were 3 results of the fall of these angels. First of all, they lost their original holiness. Secondly, they became corrupt in nature and conduct, as the various Old and New Testament names for demons demonstrates. And thirdly, these angels became the demons of Satan. Now, the origin of confined demons, now in discussing the origin of these confined demons, another distinction must be made, because there are 2 different categories of confined demons. With the demonic world, we have those who are temporarily confined demons and those who are permanently confined demons. Now, some demons are confined temporarily after being cast out of a person. If you remember, the demon Legion, which we found in Luke chapter 8, verse 31, did not wish to be sent into the place of confinement and asked Jesus to be allowed to go into the pigs instead. So some are confined temporarily after being cast out and then released later. Now, many others are confined temporarily, but they're confined now temporarily, but are going to be released for specific judgments of the Great Tribulation. Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 to 11 speaks of the release of demons for a period of 5 months to torment men to a great degree, but not to be able to kill them for those 5 months. And then Revelation chapter 9, verses 13 to 21 speaks of the release of 200 million demons for the purpose of killing 1/3 of the world's population. Again, this is in the Great Tribulation period. The place of temporary confinement for these demons is a place called the abyss. Some of them are confined there now and will be released during the Great Tribulation, while others are temporarily confined there after being cast out to be released later on to do Satan's bidding. Now, the permanently confined demons, this is the second category of demons. And let me see here. Oh, okay. We're going to, is this where I'm just thinking, was this where I finished it off? Let me see if I can find a, yes, it was. Okay. Okay. So we're coming here now to those who are permanently confined demons. This is the second category of confined demons, who are demons who have been confined permanently and will never be released, but who will move directly into the lake of fire. And there are 3 key passages that deal with these permanently confined demons. And this is Genesis 6, verses 1 to 4, 2 Peter 2, verses 4 to 5, and Jude, verses 6 to 7. Now, in the Genesis passage, Genesis 6, 1 to 4, this is a major area here of debate among believers, is whether this passage refers to angels or not. What we're going to try and show here is that it does, in fact, refer to angels who are now permanently confined. And in order to prove this, it's going to be necessary for us to study these verses phrase by phrase in a bit of detail. Genesis 6, 1 to 4. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the ground and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all that they chose. Jehovah said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever, for that he also is flesh, yet shall his days be 120 years. The Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown. Now, in verse 1, chapter 6, verse 1, it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the ground and daughters were born unto them. So this speaks of the multiplication of humanity before the flood. The Hebrew word for men here is the word ha-adam. It's a generic term and it refers to humanity in general, including both men and women. So as such, the word cannot be limited to the sons of Cain, as some people assume. Rather, it includes both Sethites and Cainites, and both of these groups died in the flood. The Hebrew word for daughters is benot ha-adam. It means and females. Emphasis here is on the female portion of humanity. Again, the expression cannot be limited, as some teach, to the female descendants of Cain. The Hebrew term here implies or simply refers to the female portion of the population. You'll see where I'm coming at with this. Now, combining what has been said so far, verse 1 could read, of chapter 6 of Genesis, humanity multiplied and females were born unto them. Now, the distinction here in verse 1 is not between male Sethites and female Cainites. Remember, these are descendants of Noah. Descendants of Adam. Now, rather, the emphasis here is on the female portion of humanity in general, which would include both descendants of Cain and descendants of Seth. Now, in verse 2, it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all that they chose. So here we have verse 2 describing an intermarriage of these women with the sons of God. Now, sons of God, well, the Hebrew expression, the sons of God, Benai ha-Elohim, the basic meaning here, Benai Elohim, the basic meaning of this phrase is to be brought into existence by God's creative act. And because this term carries this meaning, it is used very selectively in the scriptures. Throughout the Old Testament, the term sons of God is always used of angels. And this is very clear when the same usage is compared with usages in the Old Testament. We find this in Job chapter 1, verse 6, Job chapter 2, verse 1, and Job 38, verse 7. Now, no one debates that the other places where sons of God is found in the Old Testament clearly refer to angels, but some want to make Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 to 4 the exception, though there's no warrant for making such an exception here. In the New Testament, the term sons of God is expanded. Adam is called the son of God in Luke chapter 3, verse 38, because he was brought into existence by creation. Believers are called sons of God in John chapter 1, verse 12, because believers are now considered to be a new creation, according to Galatians 6, verse 15. But in Genesis, the text is dealing with a specific Hebrew expression, Benai Elohim. And as it is used in the Hebrew Old Testament, it is a term that is always used of angels, always. The distinction in this passage then is not between descendants of Seth and Cain, but between humanity and angels. The word men here emphasizes humanity. The term sons of God emphasizes angels. Daughters of men, this is the second key expression in verse 2. And this daughters of men, this is a generic term for women, which includes females of both Sethites and Cainites. So what the verse is saying is that the sons of God saw the daughters of men. There's no justification for this verse to be interpreted to mean godly males intermarried with ungodly females, as some do. Would truly godly men marry ungodly females? The daughters of men simply means womankind, and the sons of God refers to angels. So if the meaning is kept consistent with this usage elsewhere in the Old Testament, the passage is clearly speaking of fallen angels, sons of God, intermarrying with human women. This is obvious in two ways. First, it is always a one-way intermarriage. It is always sons of God marrying daughters of men. There is no record of daughters of God marrying sons of men. If the distinction was between the descendants of Seth and the descendants of Cain, it simply would not happen this way. In human society, intermarriage occurs both ways. Today, saved, believing males sometimes marry unsaved females, and sometimes saved females marry unsaved males. If the other claim were true, it would mean that the male Sethites married female Cainites, but that male Cainites never married female Sethites, which is entirely unlikely. Intermarriage would thus be confined to godly men with ungodly women, but godly women with not godly women with ungodly men. But in Genesis 6, there is only a one-way intermarriage, the sons of God intermarrying with the daughters of men. That's the first thing. Now, secondly, the context here clearly speaks of a cohabitation that is unusual and unnatural and causes the worldwide flood. Genesis 1 to 4 deals with the angelic cause of the worldwide flood, while Genesis 5 to 6 deals with the human cause. Cohabitation between Sethites and Cainites would not be unusual or unnatural. It's just men and women. While cohabitation between angels and humans would be. And those who do not like this teaching objected by quoting Matthew 22, verse 30, claiming that this verse clearly teaches that angels are sexless. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as angels in heaven. Now, what Jesus said is that human beings at the resurrection and in heaven do not marry, nor are they given in marriage. The angels that Jesus was speaking of are angels in heaven. The comparison is not with angels in general, but with angels in heaven. The emphasis in Matthew 22, verse 30 is that in heaven, good angels neither marry nor are given in marriage. Matthew 22, verse 30 makes the same point about human beings. Humans in heaven do not marry, nor are they given in marriage. But what about humans here on earth? Well, humans on earth certainly do marry and are given in marriage. This is the contrast here between what happens in heaven as over against what happens here on earth. Genesis 6, however, is speaking of angels on earth. Angels in heaven do not marry, nor are they given in marriage, and humans in heaven will not marry nor be given in marriage. Angels are never declared to be sexless, but in fact, the masculine gender is always used. Matthew 22, verse 30 teaches that angels do not procreate after their kind, meaning that angels do not give birth to other angels. They are created beings. In both the Old and New Testament, angels are always described in the masculine gender, never in the feminine, nor the neuter as an it. Whenever angels became visible, they always appeared as young men, never as women. And you can find it in Genesis 18, verse 1 to 29, 1 to 19, Genesis 1 to 19, verse 22, Mark 16, 5 to 7, Luke 24, 4 to 7, and Acts 1, 10 to 11. So Matthew 22, verse 30 cannot be used as an argument against the angelic interpretation of Genesis 6, verses 1 to 4, because it is dealing with a situation on earth, not in heaven. Nor does Matthew 22, verse 30 teach that angels are sexless, because they're always masculine. Another question, almost finished. Why did Satan have some of his fallen angels intermarry with human women? Why bother? The reason can be understood by investigating the greater context of Genesis. 3 chapters earlier to Genesis 6, the first messianic prophecy is recorded. That's Genesis 3:15. Genesis 3:15 says, I'll put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. He shall bruise thy head, and you shall bruise his heel. This prophecy declared that the Messiah would be born of the seed of the woman, and this seed would crush the head of Satan. So what was happening in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, was a satanic attempt to corrupt the seed of the woman by having some of his angels take on human form. Again, angels always appear as young males when they take on human form, and intermarry with humankind to try to corrupt the seed. And so the events of Genesis 6, verses 1 to 4 were a satanic attempt to nullify the prophecy of Genesis 3:15 by corrupting the line of the woman, humanity. And that's where we'll leave it for this session. Study hard and grow strong. Thank you for coming along.